Thank you, everyone, for joining both online and also in person. Great to see you all. Pesach is described in Kiddush and in Tefillah as Man Cherutenu, as the time of our freedom. Yet many, unfortunately, have tremendous anxiety and stress preparing for the holiday. And so many view this Yontif as the story of going from slavery in Egypt to slavery in the kitchen. There's the charming story of the Eastern European lady at the Seder, that when they were relating the 10 plagues, how we take a drop out of the cup and we take 10 drops out of the cup for the 10 plagues. And this woman took out 11 drops. They asked her, but it's only 10 plagues. Why did you take out 11 drops? She said, for me, preparing for Pesach is also a plague. So all the work involved is in part what leads people to go away to Pesach programs. But let's talk about celebrating Pesach at home and how we can prepare our home and kitchen for Pesach the easy way, or at least the easier way. Because there is indeed a lot of work and preparation that goes into Pesach, especially if you're cooking for guests and everyone that's going to be in the home. But many times people are more strict than necessary. They simply don't understand the laws. And here, as always, knowledge is power. So the more you understand about the laws of Pesach, the better you'll be able to prepare and hopefully stay calm. Let's therefore review and clarify the halachos of koshering and preparing your home and kitchen for Pesach. The Aruch HaShulchan, Rav Yechiel Michal Epstein, writes that on Pesach, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's an amazing holiday. But if you get down to it, there are 3 mitzvot aseh, 3 positive commandments, and 4 mitzvot lo taseh, 4 negative commandments. The 3 mitzvot aseh, positive commandments, are be'erev tochlu matzot, that you're obligated to eat matzah the first night of Pesach, and in the diaspora we also do it on the second night. The second mitzvah aseh is Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim, is relating the story of the Exodus. Every single day and night of the year, there's a mitzvah of Zechirat Yetzias Mitzrayim, of just remembering it briefly, which we do at the end of Kriyat Shema. But on Pesach night and at the Seder, first night, second night in Chutz La'aretz, there's a mitzvah to relate the story in depth using questions and answers, going from the degradation to praise, and really viewing it as if you yourself are leaving Egypt. And the third positive commandment is called Tashbitu, or Tashbisu, and that's the Ach B'yom Harishon Tashbisu Seor Mibatechem, and that's the obligation to eliminate chametz from our possession prior to Pesach. This year, and we're going to talk a little bit about it as we go along, pointing it out that this year, Erev Pesach is on Shabbat, and that leads to a number of complicated questions, how you follow all the laws of Pesach while adhering to the laws of Shabbat. It keeps us on our toes. So this year is Erev Pesach, and since the primary way we accomplish Tashbitu is through burning, and of course you're not allowed to burn something on Shabbos, so we do the burning of the chametz on Friday morning. And what we do is we save any bread or challah, whatever it is that we may still want to eat. We save that, for Friday night and Shabbos morning when you're still allowed to eat chametz until 10:20. But the formal burning of the chametz takes place a day early this year. It's on Friday morning. Those are the 3 positive commandments when it comes to Pesach. One is the mitzvah to eat matzah. Number 2 is Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, and number 3 is Tashbisu, is eliminating the chametz prior to Pesach. Then you have 4 mitzvot lo taseh. Number 1, the main one, as you all know, is that you're not allowed to eat chametz all 7 days and 8 days in the diaspora, and that includes, of course, the chametz includes bread and pasta and cereal and cookies, and there's all different types of things that are considered chametz. The second prohibition is that you're not allowed to have what's called tarovet chametz, which is a mixture that includes chametz. The third prohibition is lo yera'eh lecha chametz, and that means that chametz should not be seen in your home. That's called lo yira or bal yira'eh. And the fourth prohibition is lo yimatzeh chametz, that chametz should also not be found in your home. It's important to understand that with regards to these last two, which the rabbis often described as bal yira, bal yimatzeh, that when it says that it shouldn't be seen and it shouldn't be found in your house, bal yira, bal yimatzeh, it doesn't really mean that you can't see chametz in your house, but rather that you should not be in ownership of chametz on Pesach. That your chametz that you own should not be seen and found in your house. According to the Rambam, there is a fifth prohibition, and that's that you can't eat chametz after chatzot on the 14th of Nisan, meaning on Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach, after midday, you're not allowed to eat chametz. Everyone agrees that you're not allowed to have chametz on a Torah level after midday prior to Pesach, but according to Maimonides, according to the Rambam, it's a prohibition. According to other opinions, it's part of that positive commandment we mentioned earlier of tashbisu, of eliminating chametz prior to Pesach. Okay, so everyone agrees that on a Torah level, you're not allowed to have chametz already after midday, the day prior to Pesach. This year, that's Shabbos midday. But the question is it a probe? Is it an outright? Is it a lav or just an asay? Either way, it's a prohibition on a Torah level. Very important to add, as you know, that we already refrain from eating chametz earlier than midday, already from 4 hours of the day, meaning in the morning, which this year is 10:20 a.m. Then already we on a rabbinic level, a very important rabbinic prohibition, we already refrain from eating chametz after 4 hours of the day. Yes, Pesach begins Saturday night, but as we said, there's a Torah prohibition already from midday before, and there's a rabbinic prohibition even earlier that stretches 2 hours earlier. Okay, Maxine? And so you can't have chametz after 4 hours of the day, and you're not allowed to be in ownership of chametz or benefit from chametz from the 5th hour of the day. And we'll touch on some of the things more as we go along. With many, so those are the mitzvot of the holiday that we have in mind, and of course, we want to fulfill all the mitzvot of Pesach, both the positive commandments we want to fulfill and the negative commandments we want to observe and refrain from. With many food prohibitions, you're not allowed to eat it, but you are allowed to benefit from it. You're not allowed to operate a business with non-kosher food. But if it just so happens that you have something that's not kosher, it became not kosher, or you have in your possession something not kosher, the general rule when it comes to many non-kosher foods, not all, but many non-kosher foods, is that you're allowed to benefit from that food. You're allowed to give it to a pet. You're allowed to sell it to a non-Jew. Okay, you can't operate a business with non-kosher food, but if you happen to have something non-kosher, very often, while you're not allowed to eat it, but you're allowed to benefit from it. There's an Isser Achila, but it's mutter bahana, it's mutter to benefit. With regards to milk and meat, basar v'chalav, so then you're not allowed to eat it, a cheeseburger, you're not allowed to benefit from it, and you're also not allowed to cook it. Those are the three prohibitions, special prohibitions when it comes to basar v'chalav, meat and milk. With regards to chametz, so this takes it up a notch even further. This goes beyond other prohibitions, where you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to benefit from it, and you're also not allowed to own it, as we said. Those are the prohibitions of bal yira, bal yimatzeh. When it comes to meat and milk, for example, technically you can own it, as long as you're careful not to eat it. It's not a great idea to own it. I wouldn't have it around the house. But technically speaking, there's no prohibition of owning meat and milk, or something that's treif. But with regards to chametz on Pesach, here it goes above and beyond. It's more serious, where you're not even allowed to own the chametz. This is called bal yira, bal yimatzeh. Why is it prohibited to even own chametz? Why is it so stringent? The Ran gives two explanations. He says because with chametz, it's permitted all year round. and you're accustomed to eating it. And so with regards to other non-kosher foods, you refrain from it all year long. But with regards to chametz products, these you're accustomed to, you're familiar with it, and you usually eat it all year long. And so that's why the Ran says the Torah needs to make an even more stringent prohibition to ensure compliance, that not only can you not eat it or benefit from it, but it creates this Torah prohibition of owning it because we're familiar with it during the course of the year. So we need an even more stringent prohibition on Pesach. The second explanation the Ran gives is that chametz is a serious prohibition, and the punishment for eating chametz is kares, which is cut off from the Jewish people. And so since it's a more serious punishment and prohibition, so perhaps that's why the Torah extends and expands the scope, that it's not just eating and benefiting it, but you're not allowed to own it as well. In summary, in short, you can't eat chametz and you can't own chametz. Okay, that's, yes, we said 3 positive, 4 negative. We just gave a couple different explanations. Bottom line is, you're not allowed to eat chametz and you're not allowed to own chametz. Okay, we also said you're not supposed to benefit from chametz, but I'm just trying to crunch it down into the basics. That leads us into the question of, why are you obligated to clean your home for Pesach? You'll tell me, Rabbi, what are you talking about? Pesach is Pesach. Of course you have to clean your home and get it ready. Well, but just to try to understand it, because when you understand something, I think it tends to relax us more when we have an understanding of what we're doing. So when you come down to it, there's really 3 reasons why we have to clean our homes for Pesach. Number 1, because, well, owning chametz is a violation of Bal Yirah Bal Yamatzeh. So you can't own chametz. Number 2, if chametz is lying around your house, you may come and eat it, and that's a serious prohibition, punishable by kares. And the third reason why you need to clean your house for Pesach is because of that mitzvah, that positive command of tashbisu. It's not just that you refrain from chametz, but you're supposed to make sure that your home is clear of chametz. And there's a whole discussion, an analytical, conceptual discussion. Is it an active mitzvah of eliminating, or is it just that you have to take the steps necessary to reach a state that all chametz is eliminated from your home? But in any case, there is that mitzvah of tashbisu, which is another reason why you have to clean and prepare your home. How do you prepare your home? In other words, with that foundation of the 3 positive, the 4 negative, that you're also not allowed to own chametz is part of it, Bal Yirah Bal Yamatzeh, and why chametz is different. So how do you prepare your home and kitchen for Pesach? The good news is that, number 1, you do not need to rip out your carpeting. You don't need to replace the floor tiles. You don't need to blowtorch the curtains. You don't need to do any of those things. And there's another piece of good news, which is that halacha gives us a number of tools and a number of mechanisms in this war against chametz. And we're not going to get into now the different reasons for why we have matzah and why we have this war against chametz, but of course it connects to the story of the Jewish people leaving so quickly from Egypt, and matzah being a poor man's bread that they ate as slaves, and then that bread was transformed into the bread of freedom. But so there's a number of different mechanisms that we have in this war against chametz. What are the mechanisms? There are 3 different mechanisms that we have. The first one is bedika/biur, that's called search and destroying. The second one is bittul, which is nullifying the chametz. And the third is mechira, which is selling the chametz. Generally speaking, we employ a combination of all 3, of the bedika biur, bittul, and mechira, to ensure that we have no chametz in our possession. So let's talk a little bit more, since you're interested in, these are our 3 mechanisms. And not to get carried away, but these are the 3, we have 3 good mechanisms and vehicles of making sure we don't have any chametz in our possession, let's talk a little bit more about these three. The first is really the traditional method of preparing your home by cleaning, right? By cleaning your home and making sure it's clear of chametz. How do you do that? Okay, well, how do you clean your home during the course of the year? We have to you sweep the floors and you vacuum the carpets. Desk drawers should be quickly checked and cleared out to make sure there's no Twix bars or Snicker bars or other things that are in the drawers. Pretzels, jackets and coats, that you wear, or that you've worn in the last year, that you should check the pockets of your jackets and coats quickly to make sure that there's no chametz stick of candy or anything in those pockets. Backpacks and purses, quickly check those. Those are some of the main things that you have to do. The general rule is that you only need to check and clean in an area where chametz is possibly going to be brought. So if nobody ever brings chametz to the garage, you don't need to check the garage. And people don't bring chametz into the bathroom, so you don't need to check the bathroom. If you have children in the home, if you're blessed to have children in the home, little kids, then it's more challenging because then they tend to bring things all different places, and so then things should be checked. But you could involve your children in the effort of preparing for Pesach. You have them check their backpack. You have them check and clear out their desk. You don't have to do spring cleaning of your home, and nobody should get carried away. But you do a basic cleaning of the house. If you engage your family members, if you're blessed to have a housekeeper, so definitely take advantage of that. And so she could be the one, of course, to sweep the floors and vacuum the carpets a few days before Pesach to make sure that's cleared out. And of course, so you should engage family members or a housekeeper in the cleaning of your home. Either way, don't go overboard. If you don't bring chametz there, there's no need to check. And that's the first kind of traditional way to do a basic clearing out. It's to sweep the floors, it's to vacuum the carpets, a quick check of the couch cushions. People snack on the couch, to quickly check, in between the cushions. Hopefully that shouldn't take too long. And again, you could have people help you out to the degree that you're able to do that. The second way we eliminate chametz, we battle against chametz, is a very important way, which is called bittul, which is nullification of the chametz. On the night of the bedika, this year we actually push it up. It's not the night before Pesach, but it's the previous night of Thursday night. We're going to do the bedika. The Thursday night we do bedika. So it's at that time, at the end of the searching of the chametz, and that's not just a perfunctory searching, but it's supposed to be kind of the culmination of the clearing of your home, where you go around with a candle, with the help of a flashlight. You make a bracha prior to the bedika of al biur chametz, but after the bedika, that's the general time where you say a formula. And that formula is very important because by saying that formula, you're saying kol chamira v'chamia, that any leaven products that I didn't find, and any crumbs or anything, that those should be nullified. And we do it a second time when we burn the chametz. This year it's different because Erev Pesach is Shabbos, so we don't do the bittul Friday morning. So we do the first bittul, first nullification Thursday night, right at the end of the bedika. Friday morning, that's when we burn the chametz. We burn it at the regular time in the morning, although it's a day early, but the regular time in the morning. And then you save any chal or chametz that you want to still eat Friday afternoon, Friday night, Shabbos morning. But we don't do the bittul at the time of the biur. We actually do the bittul the correct time, the morning prior to Pesach, which is Shabbos morning. So before 11:37 a.m., that's when we nullify the chametz the second time. We do it twice, just to make sure we do it at the time of the bedika, because that's a normal time, and then we do it at the very last moment before you're allowed to own chametz. And at the very last moment, then we nullify whether it's chametz we don't know about or chametz we do know about. We nullify everything. How does nullification work? This is a debate between Rashi and Tosfot. Rashi says that when you mentally and you express it verbally, that any crumbs or any chametz is viewed as null and void, is viewed as nothing in my eyes, you're actually in fulfillment of the mitzvah of tashbisu, one of those three mitzvot of eliminating chametz. The Torah doesn't say that you should burn it. It says tashbisu. It uses an interesting word. So from the fact that it uses that interesting word, it shows that even by nullifying it mentally and by expressing that verbally, that you're nullifying the chametz, that itself is a fulfillment of the mitzvah of destroying chametz. According to Tosfos disagrees. He says no, that you're not fulfilling tashbisu when you nullify it, but rather what you're really doing is you're making it ownerless, and it's a workaround. By nullifying it, you're making it ownerless, and then it's not yours. And then you have nothing to worry about. We incorporate both Rashi and Tosfot in the formula of the nullification, because we say lahave hefker, kol chamir v'chamir dika b'shusi, etc. Lahave hefker, it should be viewed as ownerless. Ka'afra diara, like the dust of the earth, it should be ownerless in accordance with the position of Tosfot. We're kind of taking it out of our possession, and we're also mentally making it like dust, as if it's just inedible and insignificant dust, in accordance with the position of Rashi. And bittul is all you need to do with regards to crumbs. Okay, so the Torah wasn't given to angels. The Torah was given to human beings, great people, members of our community, great Jews, but we're not angels. And that's why the Torah gives us this mechanism of bittul, which is that we're able to, it's hard to get to every crumb, and it's hard to find everything. So if it's in the main area, sweep that. Okay, that's anyway, you or a family member, a housekeeper, right? You sweep the floor, right? Basic checking quickly in the pockets, as we said, and between the cushions. Don't get carried away. You know, is it an hour? Is it an hour or two of work? Whatever it is, total. With regard, you don't need to pull out the refrigerator to get the crumbs behind the refrigerator. You don't need to go crazy by taking apart your IKEA desk or whatever it is. When it comes to crumbs, all you need to do is nullification. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, wow, this sounds amazing, and you know about nullification. Then why not just do bittul? Then you don't need to do anything else. Stay home and just nullify all your chametz. There's two reasons why we don't rely on bittul alone. The first reason is because we don't want to put all our eggs in that basket. Bittul requires sincere, genuine intention to nullify it, and that's and we don't want to totally rely on that kind of approach for everything. And the second thing is that still you shouldn't have chametz lying around, because you might have nullified it, but if you eat it, that's going to be a prohibition of eating chametz. So for those two reasons, that's why we don't just totally rely on bittul. We still say you have to employ the other mechanisms of bedika leading to biur, cleaning the house, and mechira, which was of selling the chametz, which is what we're going to get to in a moment. But certainly bittul is a very, very important mechanism. Any crumbs that are inaccessible, you don't have to worry about. Yes, you should still clear out your car. You should clean out the car. Make sure there's no chametz lying around. It should be vacuumed out. Is a good thing to do. But that bittul works on the home, and it works on the car. It works on any crumbs, is totally nullified. Lisa, if you could, I see you raising your hand. If you could maybe write down the question, and we'll get it soon. Let's see if we could cover a little more ground, if that's okay. The third mechanism, aside from the standard cleaning of the home, don't get too carried away. Number two is this nullification that we do twice. Thursday night, and we're going to do it Saturday morning. We do it in accordance with Rashi and in accordance with Tosfot, but we do a sincere nullification of any crumbs or anything. It could be even something bigger than a crumb that we just weren't able to find. It could be pretzels or whatever it is that you weren't able to find. The bittul works for those things. The third thing that we do is we do mechira. We now some are stringent not to rely on mechira, and they try to just pace themselves, and right, and they kind of time it in a way where they consume all the chametz in the days and weeks leading up to Pesach. Some will not sell any chametz aside from, let's say the bottles of whiskey, because that's very expensive to, and what are you going to do with that? But the common minhag, there are many who don't sell actual chametz, but they'll only sell things that are where there's some chametz in it, where it's a minority ingredient. There are those who are stringent not to sell, to have challah in their ownership, for example, and to rely on the mechira that the rabbi arranges for you. And what they'll do is they'll only sell things that have maybe a little bit of chametz in it, and also the whiskey, I think, according to many, is considered not chametz gamor. There are those who are stringent in that way, but the common custom is to be lenient and to follow mechirat chametz and to rely on mechirat chametz for all chametz. Again, like, if it's a month before Pesach and you're going to Costco, so don't buy 20 boxes of pasta. So I think you should try to pace yourself and plan accordingly leading up to Pesach. Having said that, together with cleaning the house appropriately, number two, with nullification of crumbs or things you don't find, for anything else, then you could rely, the common custom, again, I said some are stringent, but the common custom is, and it's understood to work, to be effective on anything. So whatever you might have, mechirat chametz works. What you do is you put it in a designated area, you tape it up prior to Pesach, and so this way everyone knows this is off limits. This is off limits for Pesach, and this is not yours. It's going to be sold to the non-Jew. Since it's being sold to the non-Jew, you're not in violation of Bal Yirah Bal Yimatzeh, because you're not in ownership of it. And number two, you're not going to come and eat it because it's taped up and off limits. And if you try to open it, somebody in the house is going to start screaming at you. So there's no chance that you're going to eat it. It's important to also understand you're not selling it to the rabbi. Okay, I do not want all your chametz. I don't want to just take one for the team in this case. But what's happening is that you're designating the rabbi to serve as your agent to sell your chametz to the non-Jew. And it's a real and genuine sale to the non-Jew. So you're appointing the rabbi as an agent, and you use a document. You do a form of a kinyan that strengthens the fact that you're making the rabbi your agent to sell the chametz that's in your possession. And he's going to sell it, of course, prior to the time of the prohibition of chametz. And it once happened that a non-Jew came, that Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, I believe the story is told, that he sold the chametz of the members of the community to a non-Jew. And then on Pesach, he came to Rav Chaim and said, I want my chametz. Where's the whiskey? And Rav Chaim was so happy. He was so happy that the non-Jew had come to him, and because he wanted the members of his community, Rav Chaim wanted the members of the community to understand that this is a real sale. And this is not in your possession. You're selling it to the non-Jew. And if he wants, he's entitled to have it, to gain access to it. All right. I'm not going to tell you the records for sale of whiskey that I have, but this is the time of year that I guess you see how much whiskey and the expensive whiskey that people have. But in any case, people appoint the rabbi, tape up the cabinet, and any chametz items could be sold. That, my friends, is the first half of our discussion, which is how to get the home ready for Pesach. It's these mitzvot that we have in mind that we want to fulfill in a positive sense, and also mitzvot that our Lota says that we have to observe, right? Not to eat chametz or own chametz, etc. And We gave a little of the explanation behind it, and the different ways we go about it to get our home ready. We take it seriously. We have a plan, and don't get worried, don't get nervous. It's all going to be good because you have those three different ways of bedika biur and bittul and also mechira. If a person, by the way, I'll mention it now, if you're going away for Pesach, if you have the blessing of going away for Pesach, so then what I think, what I used to tell people, and I think some hold, is that you should still leave a room to do bedika before you go away, so you can sell your whole home of the chametz. You could sell the chametz in your entire home, but reserve one room for which you're keeping your own, and then you could do bedika on that room on the night before you leave for wherever you're going for Pesach. However, Rabbi Mordechai Willig has told me on a number of occasions that he feels that if you're going away for Pesach, then you could just sell the chametz in your entire home, and you could just full lock, stock, and barrel. You do mechiras chametz, and you don't need to clear your home of the chametz, and you don't need to do a bedika. Now, when you go to wherever you're staying, then it depends. If you're, let's say, going to a hotel, and the room is clean, so it's probably not a good idea to start scattering chametz everywhere. To go ahead and do bedika. If it's clean, so then you don't have an obligation to do bedika, in Rabbi Willig's opinion. You don't have an obligation to do bedika in your home because you've sold all the chametz. It's a full sale of the chametz, and when you're coming to the hotel room is already clean. It's a good idea to certainly look around, make sure there's no chametz. If there's chametz in the refrigerator, have that removed. But you wouldn't make a bracha on the bedika when you come to the hotel. If you're going to somebody's house, a relative or a friend, whatever it is, for Pesach, then you join them in their bedika that they do the night before Pesach. This year, it would be Thursday. It would be Thursday night. So if you have any specific questions about going away in bedika, of course, you're welcome to ask me. Let's see. Question on the chat. Okay, so Lisa asked the question of what about owning companies via stocks that might own chametz? That's a great question, Lisa. And the answer, the short answer to your question is that most authorities say that if as long as you're not a 10% shareholder in a company, then you don't have to worry about that prohibition. It means even though the company owns chametz and maybe does business in chametz, but as long as if you have 100 shares, 1,000 shares, you're usually okay. If you have a 10% stake in a company, which is a very, very significant stake in the company, then that's where you might have some issues, and then you should talk about it with your rabbi. But otherwise, you don't have to worry about it because you just own such a minimal amount, so it's not considered your chametz just because you have shares in whatever company it might be. Any questions quickly for talking about the home, and then we're going to move into the kitchen. Yeah.
Food that's not kosher. For example, you feed a dog. So what do you do with the dog food during Pesach?
Great point. Okay, what do you do with pets during Pesach? You're not allowed to feed them chametz. So you have to find dog food or pet food that's not chametz. And so we could talk about it, how to make that happen. But you're not allowed to own chametz, and you're not allowed to benefit from chametz or give chametz to your pet on Pesach. So you have to figure that out. I've had discussions. Jeff Werber is our local vet, and we would work it out to figure out some diet for your pets on Pesach. Let's see if we can move over to the kitchen. Yeah, okay. I knew that, but I was okay, Rifki, one more question. Okay. Let's move from the house into the kitchen. The first thing to say the obvious is that, again, we're trying to just clarify and stick to the basics, and the more we know, the more we understand, I think the less stressful it is, that all foods that are served on Pesach in your home or wherever you're going have to be kosher lePesach. Okay, so that's the first thing. If you go to a kosher market, already they have sections, maybe the whole market already is kosher lePesach. You should always still check that it has a kosher lePesach supervision. The second thing is that your pots and pans and silverware and dishes also need to be kosher for Pesach, because any taste that's in the walls of the pots and pans also have halachic significance in some fashion, and so it has to be those also have to be kosher for Pesach. If you have utensils, dishes, pots, pans, silverware that's just used on Pesach, then you're good to go. Then they're kosher for Pesach, and you're all set. There are usually some items, though, that you want to kosher because you use them during the year, and so then you're going to need to kosher those pots or silverware or whatever it is to enable them to be used for Pesach. There's a process called koshering that you could do, and then I'm going to explain to you. And then, of course, we're going to talk about things like the oven and the microwave and stovetop, etc. One general rule with regards to koshering, you can kosher, you can make things kosher, but there are a lot of rules regarding this. The pasuk says in Bamidbar, in Numbers 31, it says, Kol davar asher yavo ba'esh, taviru ba'esh, anything that was used, it's actually talking about things that were collected, spoils of war from the war of Midian, and those were not kosher. So anything that was used in fire should go through fire, and anything that did not go through fire should be placed in water. This led the rabbis to the principle called kabolo kach polto, which means as a pot or silverware, whatever it is, absorbs the taste of chametz or not kosher, that's the way to remove the taste. And there's two separate things to keep in mind. One thing is tevila, is toveling utensils. And that's whenever, if you have something that's manufactured by a non-Jew, it kind of has to be converted, so to speak. So it needs to be brought to the mikvah, just like a convert goes to the mikvah. In a certain sense, a little bit different, but similar. You have to take the pot to the mikvah. And so you got to go to the local kela mikvah. Of course, the custom is that even though it says it's open, but it's closed the first time you go. And then the second time it's again closed. No, I'm just joking around. Hopefully, maybe you'll get lucky and it'll be open when you go there. But that's the mitzvah that you have all year round, that when you purchase something new, or it could be old, anything, meaning if it's from a non-Jew or manufactured by a non-Jew, it needs to be tovelt. Not everything, but metal and glass. Metal and glass generally needs to be tovelt. China does not need to be tovelt. That's a leniency by China. We'll come back to China in a second. What we're focusing on now is not toveling, although that's something also important for Pesach. When you buy something new, you have to make sure you take the stickers off. You bring it to the local Kalim mikvah. We have one on Robertson by Anshe Emes, and you make a bracha, and you put the utensil. It's any metals. It's pots or silverware, and also glass, metal and glass. You make a bracha, and you submerge it totally into the mikvah. There's a separate area which is called koshering or hagalat kalim. If you have something that's new, so if it's a Jewish manufacturer, then you're good to go. It doesn't need tefillah and it doesn't need koshering. It's new and it was manufactured by a Jew. If it's something that's new but from a non-Jew, most of the things that you buy, I guess, certainly here in the States, so then it doesn't need to be koshered because it's new, but it needs to be tovelt. If you have something that you own, and so you own it already, and it was toveld years ago, whatever it is. So now the issue is koshering. Here the rule is kabolo kachpolto, as the pot absorbs the controversial taste. That's the way you extract it. Therefore, these are the three general forms of kashrut. Here we go. If a pan or grill is used for food without the medium of water, meaning it's used through fire, like a grill, then the only way to kasher that item is through fire. And you would have to apply red hot heat, and that's called libun. That's a much harder, that's a much more difficult form of kashering, and it's also dangerous. You got to be careful. The second form of kashering is more of the standard form of kashering, and the one that's much easier, and that's what we're going to focus on. And that's if a pot or pan is used for food with the medium of water, so then it requires what's called hagala, kashering with boiling water. So that's generally for pots, pans that are used with some form of liquid or oil. Also, you could rely on it, but if it's used with some liquid or sauce, and silverware as well, so then the way to kasher it is through placing it into boiling water. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. If a countertop or sink is poured upon, so then it absorbed the problematic taste through pouring. So then you don't need libun and you don't need hagala, but that's called irui rotchen. So the standard way would be to pour boiling water over the countertop, right? As the item absorbs, that's the way it extracts, kabolo, kafpoto. Those are the three general forms of kashering, and we'll talk more about it just in a minute. But let's talk about which materials can be kashered and which materials cannot be kashered. Okay, I already spoke about which materials need to be toveld and which don't need to be toveld. How about kashering? Here it's which materials can be kashered, which materials just cannot be kashered. All metals can be kashered. Smooth wood utensils can be kashered. If it's not smooth and it has a lot of cracks and crevices, then we're nervous that there's going to be something that's in the cracks. But if it's something that's a smooth wood utensil, so that could be kashered. Granite or marble countertops can be kashered. Okay, so those are all things that are allowed to be kashered. Glass, certainly for Pesach, we're generally stringent not to kasher glass. That's certainly that's the common custom is not to kasher something that's glass, that's chametzik. So you have anything that's glass, you don't kasher. Plastic, there's a whole debate and discussion about plastic. Many are stringent. Rav Moshe says better to be stringent not to kasher plastic. But I heard from Rabbi Newberger, and I know there's some poskim that allow kashering of plastic. If it's something that's cleaned, then you can kasher the plastic. Porcelain, earthenware, and china, that should not be kashered. And therefore, china has a leniency by toveling in a mikveh, right? A bride and groom, a chassan and kala get this full china set. That does not need to be toveld in a mikveh. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news by China is that if it becomes not kosher, it's going to be difficult to kasher that. And certainly when talking about Pesach, if something is chametzik during the year, we don't kasher porcelain, earthenware, china, formica, those kinds of things for Pesach. Duralex, Pyrex, Corel, Corningware, all these are questionable and better to not kasher it. Okay, so what do we got so far? We have the general principle of kashering, and we applied it to the three forms of kashering, and we discussed some of the materials that are permitted to be kashered and some materials that cannot be kashered. But certainly, metal, wood, smooth wood, granite, those are things that can be kashered. How does one go about kashering a pot or silverware? There are 4 different steps. Here we go. 4 different steps. The first step is you got to clean it well. Second step is to not use it for 24 hours. And the reason for that is because there's another important rule in kashrut that's called if something's ben yomo. Ben Yoma means that for 24 hours, the taste in a pot or in a spoon is still considered a positive taste. And if the taste comes out of the walls of the pot or in the spoon, it could trafe up, or it has halachic significance. After 24 hours, that's called Eino Ben Yomo. And then if it's a food, then a food is a food, right? So let's say you have milchus and fleishiks. You can't mix milchus and fleishiks. But if you have a chicken soup and you have a dairy spoon, you should not put that dairy spoon, that clean dairy spoon I'm talking now. If it has dairy on it, of course not. No question about it. But even if it's a clean dairy spoon, of course, Maxine, you know this, right? You can't put that clean dairy spoon into the chicken soup. Let's say by accident you did put the dairy spoon in the chicken soup. I'm talking about all year long now. So then the halacha is that the spoon has to be kasher. It was dairy, and now it came into contact with hot chicken soup. So the spoon would need to be kashered in the way that I'm about to describe to you. The soup is going to remain kosher. The soup is going to be kosher. Why? For two reasons. Number one, because the soup, batal b'shishim, that's right. Yeah. Because the soup is more than 60 times the amount of the dairy. We're talking about a dairy spoon. So even if there's dairy in the whole spoon that comes out of the spoon into the soup's going to be 60 times the amount of the dairy. That's number one. And number two, very often that spoon has not been used for 24 hours. And so that's called Eino Ben Yomo. If it's Eino Ben Yomo, the taste is not halachically significant. Again, you still shouldn't do it, even if you haven't used the spoon in a week or a month or a year. You still shouldn't put that in the chicken soup. But if you did it after the fact, so then number one, again, the soup is 60 times the amount, so you're okay for that reason. But number two is the taste that's in the walls of the spoon is Eino Ben Yomo. It's been more than 24 hours, and so it's not halachically significant. It's like a negative taste, and therefore it's not going to trafe up something else. For this reason, when we now talking about koshering, so the first step we said is what? You have to clean the pot or the silverware. You have to make sure it's clean. That's number one, always. Number two is the general principle by koshering is that you have to wait 24 hours before koshering it. In other words, from the time that the last time that it had the hot chametz in it, the last time it was used for chametz, there needs to be 24. You clean it well, but then you have to make sure there's 24 hours between it was last used and doing the koshering. Why? The reason for this is so that any taste that comes out of the pot, you might be concerned. Hey, if once you're getting the negative taste out, but then it's going to go back in. But if it's after 24 hours, so then it's called Eino Ben Yomo. It's no sintam lefgam. It's a negative taste, and it's not going to cause any problems. The third step is to take this silverware, let's say, right, and you put it into boiling water. Okay. First step is cleaning it well, the spoon. Second step is you've waited 24 hours. The third step is, and the key step is to put it into the boiling water. You're allowed to use any clean pot for this purpose. You're allowed to use any clean pot for this purpose. You should use an Eino Ben Yomo pot. A pot that has not been used for 24 hours, but you could use a Pesach tikka pot. You could use a chametz tikka pot that has not been used for 24 hours and it's clean. You can use any pot for koshering. Yeah, and because you're doing it for Pesach, you're koshering. That's there. Yeah, well, yeah, you can as long as they're both Eino Ben Yomo. You can put something that's yes.
Most likely during the year, you have a whole.
Yes, you could put the milchik and fleish, as long as they're both Eino Ben Yomo. In 24 hours, you could put the milchiks and the fleishiks into to kasher them together. Yes.
ask.
Then the
three
fourth
questions.
step is, and then we get your question, Chaya. The fourth step is you've taken out the the kosot, let's say, the wine cups. What's the concern there? Because maybe they were washed with chametz over the course of the year. Okay, so the minig is to kasher the wine goblets. You put them in, you put the spoons in, you put the knives in. You have to make sure the water is boiling, and they just needs to be in for a few seconds. After they've been in the water for at least a few seconds, then you take them out carefully. Okay, this is a halacha of being careful not to burn yourself. So you have to figure out a way, I don't know, with tongs or whatever it is, to take the silverware out of the water. And the last step, it's a custom, the Shulchan Aruch says, is to rinse it off with cold water. And that's the final step. Yes, Chaya, question.
Yes, so am I correct that you said you do not kasher glass?
That's right.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we did in Israel for many, many
Let's
years.
come back to this
You
later
can-
about, yeah.
Yeah, we used to put it in water, מים שלנו, 3 ימים ו3
Yes,
לילות.
okay. Yes, called Milu V'iru
Yeah.
three times.
So is that okay?
We don't, the custom is not to do that. Custom is not to do that.
Okay.
Yes, there's a way, Chai is talking about filling it with water, letting it be for 24 hours and then doing another thing
Getting
of
rid
water
the
and
water
another
for
thing of
3
water.
days and 3 nights we did it.
Yeah.
So you don't do it?
I think the common custom is to not, when it comes to glass, to just, to get
And
separate
what
glasses for Pesach.
about glass that you use all year, but you have it tucked away, let's say for 5, 6 years? Would it be kosher for Pesach? If it's-
No.
No, if it,
Yeah, even if you've waited, that's the general rule. Like when it comes to something not kosher, even if you've waited a year or 2 or 3, it's still not kosher. Or if it's not kosher
I'm
Pesach,
talking
not
about
kosher
glass, though.
Pesach.
glass.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Now, there are certain exceptions that if you have something that's very expensive or it's a family heirloom, and it got trafed up for some reason during the course of the year, under certain circumstances, Rav Moshe permitted to kasher it 3 times, and you've waited a year, and in certain circumstances, it might be okay. But the general rule is that if it's something that can't be kashered, like China, I'm talking about China now. If it's metal and silverware, we said you can kasher it. If it's smooth wood, you can kasher it. But if it's something that shouldn't be kashered, then we say. Now, Pesach is different than during the year by glass. I think the custom by glass is generally not to kasher glass for Pesach.
Okay, and last question.
Yeah.
Last question. When you said kashering, let's say silverware in a
Yeah,
pot
yeah.
with hot water, boiling water. My mother for years in Israel used to put like a block inside the water. Yeah.
Hot stuff.
Okay, great. So great. So Chai is asking, that's great that you asked that, Chai. All your questions, great questions. Chaya mentioned about putting in like a hot brick
Mhm.
into the water. The only reason you don't need the hot brick.
You don't.
The only reason for that perhaps is to make sure the water is still boiling.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, let's say if you want to kasher the pot itself. If you want to kasher the pot itself, then one way to do it is to put it into a pot that's bigger than it, of boiling water. A rule with kashering is different than toveling in this respect as well. Toveling, you have to submerge the whole utensil at once into the mikveh for toveling. For kashering, it does not need to be done all at once. Okay, so that's another interesting difference between toveling and kashering. Right, toveling is in certain cases, kashering is in certain cases. Toveling, you don't have to tovel China. Kashering, you can't kasher China. Here's another difference is toveling, you got to put the whole thing in at once. Kashering, you could do it in stages. So if you have, let's say, a big item, and it can't be immersed all at once, so you put it into the boiling water part of it, and then you could roll it around, or turn it around to get the other parts of it. If you have a pot, then it's difficult to put it into another pot. So then what you do is you fill up the pot with boiling water. And then there's 2 options. Either that's where you throw something in that's very hot, then the water goes over. I don't think you need to do that. I think all you need to do is you fill it up to the very top, and then it'll bubble. It'll bubble over on its own. When you boil it, it'll bubble over, and that's the way it koshers the pot. Let's see if we could, Josh. Let's get one question from Josh, but then I want to move further.
Real quick question is countertops. You mentioned granite or marble. What about Caesar stone, which is man-made stone? Can you also pour boiling water on those counters to cook?
Let me look into. I have to think about that one. Yeah, let me look into it. I know I've been asked that in the past, but let's move from silverware, pots, and if we could write down the question, we'll get the question soon, because I'm hoping to cover a lot of your questions. Silverware, pots, and pans. You do the 4 steps as I just said. What about ovens? If you have a self-cleaning oven, run it through the self-cleaning cycle, and that koshers it. If you don't have a self-cleaning oven, so then, and beware, I think, self-cleaning, I know that some people, when they use the self-cleaning function and the oven is made with the self-cleaning function, but still, unfortunately, the oven doesn't take it too well, but self-cleaning is considered koshering of an oven. For ovens that don't have the self-cleaning, you're not zoche to have the schus, to have a self-cleaning oven, so then the oven should be cleaned well. Is it you? Is it a housekeeper? Is it your sibling or a child? But it needs to be cleaned well with an oven cleaner like Easy Off. The racks should be removed and cleaned as well. The oven should not be used for 24 hours. We said that. And then here, you can't dip the oven into boiling water. So here, what you do is you set the oven to the highest temperature and you run it for an hour. And the basis for that is the principle of, as we said, kabolo kachpolto, the way something is absorbed is the way it's extracted. And the oven itself, yes, there's no liquid in the oven, right? But you're not cooking on the walls. The food is not on the walls of the oven. The issue is the steam that's created by the oven. That's why Rav Moshe and other poskim say that you could rely on hagala or on something similar to it. And by putting the oven to the highest temperature, that'll be considered koshering of the oven. A microwave, look, maybe you could survive without the microwave for a week, for a few days. We're talking about Chol HaMoed now, right? Because you don't use the microwave on Yom Tov anyway. But if you want to kosher the microwave, then clean it well. Don't use it for 24 hours. Put a styrofoam cup of water and run it for 10 minutes. Be careful when you remove the water. And then I heard this from Rav Hershel Schechter that then you should do it a second time and put the cup of water in a different spot, because that'll kosher the area where the cup was. Well, just what else are you going to use? Oh, glass. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So use whatever you want to use in the microwave. Should be fine. Should be fine. You run it for 10 minutes and then you move the cup to a different place and you run it for 10 minutes. Then with regard to the tray, the metal racks, those are also, you kasher that in the oven. Yeah. Regarding the tray, either remove the tray or if you can replace the tray with a kosher Pesach tray, but otherwise you could just cover it. Just cover it well with some kind of wrap, whatever you feel is comfortable using and safe to use. I mean, if you use
you can buy new slate with every silver foil.
Okay, that's with regards to so oven. We have a plan now for self-cleaning and regular. A microwave, that's how you kosher. That's how you kosher the microwave. There's a question about the plastic. If the walls of the microwave are plastic. So but there are poskim like Rav Gedalia Dov Schwartz, and I once asked this question to Rav Newberg, as I said, and they permit koshering the plastic. Stovetops, conventional gas range, the iron or the metal grates can be koshered. Again, you clean them well, and then you just you probably don't even have to wait the 24 hours because you're burning them out with fire. And what you do is you just turn on the fire to the highest temperature, and you do it for like 15 minutes. I suggest, just for the safety of the oven, not to put all 4 or 6, whatever, how many burners you have, blessed to have. Don't put them all on at the same time, because that might burn out the oven. That's more of just relating to the oven itself. That's not a halach. That's a say, maybe that's more of a, that's not a halachic. So you could do 2 at a time. You put on the fire to the highest temperature, and also what you should do, this is to intensify the heat, is you put a blech, or you put an eno ben yomo pot that hasn't been used 24 hours and is clean, on top, and this way that helps contain the heat. And you do that 15 minutes. You do 2 at a time. That'll kosher the grates, the iron or metal grates. The burners themselves do not need to be koshered, just cleaned. The area between the burners should be cleaned and covered with aluminum foil or some separate top. When you get to electric stove tops and smooth tops, maybe if you want, you could ask, you could ask a shaila, but here, again, you just clean the burners, turn them on to the highest setting for 10 minutes. I don't even think you need 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. The drip pans should be cleaned, and the area in the middle should be covered. That's kind of the general approach. You clean it, you put it to the highest temperature. Let's say 15 minutes for all these types of things. You put it to the highest temperature for 15 minutes. And then the area between, let's say you have a glass or Corning smooth top range. I'm not sure if you could pour boiling water over that. It might ruin it. So you could just place trivets or cover the areas, or just don't place any pots in the area between the burners. Broiler is more difficult to kosher, so just clean the broiler pan and area. Don't use it on Pesach. Also, warming drawers. It's hard to clean the warming drawer, and it's hard to get it to a temperature that'll be considered koshering. And so it's best not to use the warming drawer, to survive without the warming drawer for Yontif. What about sinks? If it's china, or what about them? If it's china or porcelain, so then it can't be koshered. You would need an insert. If it's a stainless steel sink, then you're in luck. Then you're in good shape. Then what you do is you need to wait the 24 hours. That's harder. That's harder by the sink. But you have to make sure you have to wait the 24 hours to not have any hot chametz stick of food that's in the sink. So you wait the 24 hours and you pour boiling water. You pour boiling water over the stainless steel sink, and after doing that, you rinse with cold water. You can pour the hot water over the faucets for extra measure, and that'll kosher the sink. Countertops, the way my mom used to do it, mom, right? Everything, you just go to my mom's kitchen, all the halachas of Pesach right there. They tell a story about from the Soloveitchik family. It was a father and son, and they were doing certain things in the kitchen that were a little controversial. And when the mother came back, the wife mother came back, so she said, "What are you doing? How can you be using the same dishes for milk?" And they said, "No, we're following the Shulchan Aruch. It's just cold." They try to defend themselves based on the Shulchan Aruch. And she responded, "I don't care what the Shulchan Aruch says. Don't treif up my kitchen." So if you need to know the halacha, you ask the women in the house. They usually know the halacha. With countertops, so many feel comfortable. It's a nice thing to just cover the countertop. Okay, that's the old honor the holidays. So they don't want to cover it with some wood cover. And so what you do is as follows. If you can't cover it, or it's hard to cover it, now keep in mind, this is not like it's not like a pan where or a pot that you're making chametz stick of food. The concern here by a counter is that some chametz stick of food fell on it at some point, and then your chametz is going to fall on that exact spot. So the level of concern here is less than, let's say, a pot or something like that. At the same time, we're stringent when it comes to, we're stringent, and we make sure to either cover the countertops is 2 ways. Okay, One way is, right, kibolo kachpolto. It got not kosher by something not kosher dropping on it, falling on it. So you could pour boiling water on top of it. You don't have to take the counter and immerse it in a massive pot of boiling water, because that's not how it's used. It's used as something might have fallen on it. So you just have to pour boiling water on it. That might make a mess, and you need to have some towels. So the other way to do it is, if you have a high level steamer, then there are poskim that permit this, and it's that what you do is you do slowly over the entirety of the counter, and it's a high level it's the steamer, and you do that'll also marble, granite, stainless steel, those all can be koshered. Porcelain, enamel, silestone, those should be covered. Okay, you asked me about the Caesar stone. Let me look into a Caesar stone. Yeah, I think quartz you could kosher. The stone you could kosher. Stone you could kosher. Yeah, heavy duty aluminum foil should be okay. Cover with heavy duty, and then just I think that should be fine. That's fine. Dishwashers. If it's a porcelain or enamel interior, that can't be koshered. You could survive a few days without the dishwasher. Maybe you could survive a few days either way without dishwasher. But if it's a stainless steel walls, then you wait the 24 hours and you run it through 2 cycles. Rabbi Willig says 1 cycle with soap, 1 cycle without soap, without any stuff in the dishwasher, and that'll kosher everything. If it seems to be that it's dirty and that the racks are dirty and then you can't clean it, so then you should get new racks. If it's if it's smooth racks and it appears to be clean, then the koshering will work for everything. Yes, even plastic racks. Tablecloths and napkins, just put them in the laundry to use. You wash them in the laundry, tablecloths and napkins, you're good to go. High chair. Okay, I see some moms with little ones on here. Clean thoroughly. You cover the tray with contact paper or the like. Refrigerator. Have it clean it, or have somebody clean it for you. And the minig is to line the shelves. That's the custom, is to line the shelves. You don't need to move out the refrigerator or move out the wall unit. Any crumbs behind it is inaccessible, and nullification works for that. Kiddush cups, custom is to do hagala on that. There's other details, but those are some of the basics. Let's get some questions. Okay, everyone's been waiting. Any questions from online? What about an electric oven? An electric oven. So you put that we said that you clean that inside to the best degree that you can, Tova, and then you put it to the highest temperature for an hour, and that would kosher the electric oven. The inside of the oven should be the same, whether it's electric or gas. You put it to the highest temperature for an hour. Yeah, let's Joan. A metal hot plate. A lot of times those have stains, and it's hard to clean those effectively. If it's clean, then put tin foil on it. Put tin foil on it. Then that's if it's clean. If it's clean, you mean a metal hot plate, and it's clean. I think if
Just had pans sit on it.
right. That's a good question. I think probably you should maybe I would say to put it on for a while on its own without anything on it. Highest temperature, put it on for like an hour, and it's clean. You put tin foil on it, and I think that should be good. Yeah, Malka.
the surface, then I'm not sure what exactly it is made of.
Which one?
Surface on a kitchen table, and I'm not sure about the material. And I'm
What are you talking about? The kitchen table. You're not sure about the surface. Kitchen table, you could just clean it well, and you put a tablecloth and you use mats. No, you just clean it well and you cover with a tablecloth or use mats.
There's, the style of ovens that are glass, okay.
Right.
Okay, so in Israel, we wanted to order one, and so I checked, because they say different things here than in Israel, so I'm just telling you. So we have Rabbi Mordechai Younger,
Okay.
and who's, okay, Ken Parlot's not fame, but anyway, he sent us to somebody else who's like a posting on that, and
Okay.
they allowed us to get a glass top stove, and he said I can't, now to check it, get
Okay.
either Hagoah or you turn it on the ice and it will not crack. Here they
Ah,
tell
okay.
you can't do it, but there they said
Okay.
you can do it.
So that depends upon the oven. So I think to clean it, don't use it for 24 hours, put on the burners for 15 minutes. And about the rest of the area, if it's possible, use the boiling water. Yeah.
That's what
But
they told
that's,
me.
so look into that. If it's possible, without ruining the oven, use boiling water. If not, then there's place trivets on the area in the middle if you want to place the pots down there. Yes, she hasn't asked yet. So, 1 second. Any questions? Can you kosher drinking glasses? So it's no, the custom is to not kosher drinking glasses, to just get new glasses for Pesach. Okay, yes.
So kosher, throw everything in there and then.
No, that'll kosher the dishwasher. That doesn't kosher the dishes and the pots and the pans and the silverware. Each case is different. A pot, there's food that's hot food that's placed in the pot. Dishwasher, you're talking about there's a little waste food and there's soap in there and you were talking about the walls, so every case is different, but that's a great question. The koshering that I mentioned for the dishwasher is just for the dishwasher, but that won't work. That won't work for the other things. Any other questions coming from? I really appreciate those online. Any other questions from those online? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask it if you want to. Okay, while you're thinking, I'm so glad you've joined online and getting more questions from in person. Okay, yes.
Related to the dishwasher, did I hear you said plastic racks are okay?
Yes, that's fine. Yes, yes.
I thought-
Okay, just a couple other things, I'm not going to get too much into it now, but because this year Erev Pesach occurs on Shabbat, so what do? Friday night, it's the best if you can, where you have a table outside for Friday night and early Shabbat morning before 10:20. That's where you make hamotzi, and if you can eat totally outside is wonderful. And then afterwards, I recommend using disposable dishes for the Friday night Shabbat morning meal. Number 2, any hot food that you're serving should be prepared with kosher Pesach and should not be chametz stick, right? Should not be chametz stick. It should be prepared in regular kosher Pesach stuff. And then at the meal, you serve some challah, for which you make hamotzi, and that challah could be together with the other food that you're having at the table. After the meal, Friday night and Shabbat morning, you got to finish that chametz before 10:20. You wrap up the tablecloth, and you put it into the into the outdoor garbage container. That's off your property, and that's also not considered as if you're in ownership. If a person wants to have their house kosher lePesach totally and doesn't want to have any rolls or challah with which to make hamotzi, so then what you could do is you could use egg matzah. And so then you could have a kosher lePesach home and kitchen, and you don't have to worry about the challah. And then you have a lechem mishnah. You use 2 egg matzah for Friday night, and you use 2 egg matzah for Shabbos morning. But according to most opinions, you have to finish the egg matzah by 10:20. And then after 10:20, you can continue eating other foods. You can continue your meal. So most shuls, like here at Beth Jacob, we're going to have like a 7:30 minyan. People can get home and they could make hamotzi, and then they could continue their meal after 10:20. So that's just a couple of just a couple of details about Pesach this year, because Shabbos is Erev Pesach. I just want to, yeah, Joan.
So what I do is I close the cupboards and I put stop signs on all the cupboards.
Beautiful.
And I tape them shut. Is that-
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
do.
Yeah, if you have non-kosher Pesach utensils, you just you tape them shut before Pesach and you're good. A couple of key things to conclude is the fum tzara agra. According to the effort is the reward. So any effort that you put into preparing for the holiday, and I know there is a lot of effort that goes into Pesach, so every one of you should be rewarded for all the effort that you put in. As you engage in this effort, and hopefully we've made it a little bit easier just by explaining it, talking about the different steps, saying what you have to do and also what you don't have to do is also important. To keep in mind that you should try to do it b'simcha, with happiness, and that there's value also in the preparation that you put into something. So the preparation itself has religious value. And the more that we go above and beyond, then the Gemara says that Hashem will go above and beyond for us. Because the Gemara has a conversation where the angels say, how do you show special favoritism to Jewish people? I thought you don't take a bribe, you don't show favoritism. And what God answers is that we show favoritism to Hashem. We go above and beyond in our relationship with Hashem. For example, Hashem tells us to say Birchat HaMazon only if we're satiated, but we say Birchat HaMazon even if we didn't have a complete meal. So if we go above and beyond, so that's why Hashem goes above and beyond with us. So don't go overboard, don't go crazy, but any effort you should be rewarded for. Number 2, try to be in a good spirit and be happy when you're putting in the effort, knowing that it has religious value. To the preparation itself that you put into something also has significance. And number 3, the more effort we put into it, if we go above and beyond for Hashem, Hashem should go above and beyond for you and your family to have a Chag kosher v'sameach and only brachot. Thank you so much. And I'm always available if a person has questions now or in the days leading up to Pesach. Thanks so much.
I missed because I came late. I missed what
Yeah.
you said about bread challah. Can you have it in like your garage or something
Um,
in the freezer? Or